We hear a lot of talk these days about CBDCs, Central Bank Digital Currencies. A lot of governments of the world are investigating the feasibility of this. A lot of them have started it already. It is gravely concerning to me for a variety of reasons. And I think sometimes in all of the headlines, some stuff gets lost. Well, a lot of stuff gets lost. And sometimes the original intention of something gets forgotten. So for those who are unfamiliar, CBDC stands for Central Bank Digital Currency. This is enabled now by the cryptocurrencies, which most people have heard about. Cryptocurrencies are possible because of a piece of technology called the distributed ledger, which lives on the blockchain. Cryptocurrencies are a very small part of what the blockchain enables. We've barely scratched the surface. This is a very new area for the world. Unlike stocks and bonds and commodity prices and like oil and gold and things like that, cryptocurrencies are really new. They only started in 2009, and the entire technology that enables cryptocurrency is also very new. And the applicability is far and wide, and people are just now starting to play in these realms and see what might be possible. And the thing is, I love cryptocurrency. I love that the original idea was that it commands, that it enables transparency and trust in a variety of different ways. Now, how we use tools, that depends on us as the human collective, right? Like I can use a tool like a knife and cut vegetables and meats and bread and make a delicious meal for me and my family. I can also use it for violent purposes. It is not the issue or the fault of the knife, how I intend to use it. And money, whether it's cash money or digital currency or any type of cryptocurrency, really depends on the intention of use, the intended purpose. My issue with central bank digital currencies is that it's quite the opposite of the decentralization model that blockchain and the distributed ledger was built from. And I'm always weary when pieces of technology are used outside their intended purpose, because it makes me question if the people who are using this actually understand what it is. It's like taking a great power that you do not understand and thinking that you are the expert and you have the solution for it. It leads to, in my understanding and experience, it leads to an amplification of the original problem. One of the things I love about the crypto space, and obviously there are exceptions, but I love that in a way there are no experts. I mean, as much of an expert you can be in 10, 11, how many ever years it's been around. But, and again, you can self-proclaim yourself an expert, I guess, but I don't listen to people like that. The thing is, whether you've been an investor for 90 years, or if you're a 12-year-old person and you figured out how to, mine cryptocurrency, it's almost like it levels the playing field. The age and experience perhaps matters to a certain degree, but it doesn't really make you more of an expert than someone who's like a really nifty programmer. And that's what I love about it. It's leveled the playing field in so many ways for so many different groups and varieties of people. And again, it's enabled a lot beyond just the currency. One need only look to the NFT world and everything that has been enabled in the world of arts and creativity and the creators of fine arts, music, and digital art. There's also some really tremendous stories about social assistance and charities where near 99% of what was raised actually went towards the intended recipient or recipients in this case. And there's so many examples. And so it's really enabling a very interesting restitching of the social tapestry in a lot of ways. And I think people really miss this when they overly focus on the legislation around cryptocurrencies and all the possibilities of the central bank digital currency. So one of the reasons that I found that we're told that central bank digital currencies are great is that it will help reduce illicit activity. So, drug trade and trafficking and things like that. And that's all fine and good, but here's what I don't understand. How exactly? There are today, in the spring of 2022, early spring, there are like 20,000 other cryptocurrencies. Are we really so naive to believe that, like your average big mobster is going to, look at a notice and be like, oh, now we have central bank digital currencies. So, the ins and outs of your bank account are now very transparent. Are they going to be like, oh, I guess I'll stop all my illicit activity? No, one need only have an understanding of human behavior to know that that's likely not going to happen. These folks, these elements in society, in the world, will probably find another way because there are many other ways. And so I'm not seeing what this naive and slightly arrogant state, there's almost like there's nothing underneath the statement. Yes, of course, we all want illicit activity to be, caught, discouraged, seen, and then, brought to justice in ways. But and I think this is sort of the root of the problem. Cryptocurrencies are not the savior, and neither is a central bank digital currency. No policy, no government policy is going to save us from, ourselves, our own behaviors and things. That is truly the human's journey. And so what I don't appreciate is this idea that once we have central bank digital currencies, then illicit activity will drop, and we'll be able to engage in better social programs. And there's a huge element on trust and ownership here, and it gets talked about a lot with people who have good reasons to mistrust. If you live in a country where you deeply align and you trust every government policy, environmental policies, foreign policies, social policies, indigenous rights, if that's, a part of the land you live on, how the environmental rights and policies impact, say, taxation, the preservation of your generational wealth, all of this stuff. If you are in perfect harmonic alignment with your government policies, all of them, because they all impact each other, and you walk in such surety that it will not change in the years and the generations to come, then that is a lovely place. It's nowhere I live, and that is not my reality, and it is not the reality for most people I know. And so this is the thing when you have programmable currency. The whole point of decentralized currency is no one entity, organization, group can control the algorithm that enables or disallows certain things. But now with central bank digital currencies, presumably the central bank will be doing it. So your government, the body of your country that is responsible for money supply will also be responsible for the algorithm that programs the money that you receive that sits in your likely central bank digitally enabled wallet. And it's interesting when we get into the programming of things, because it's a couple of lines of code that would enable or disallow you from maybe buying or selling certain things. Again, with the whole illicit activity thing, maybe now if you tried to use your digital currency and purchase illegal things, it will say, denied or insufficient funds or something like that, because there's an algorithm written that does not allow this activity to go through, assuming you use only central bank digital currency. But this to me is really problematic, again, mostly from a social perspective, because there's a lot of people who fall through the cracks. And it is really the vulnerable populations, I think, that get hurt the most from policies that just exclude them because they're vulnerable, and most people, don't think of them. And so some of the examples I have around this is if you were in a really abusive relationship and you were not the breadwinner of the family, your wallet is then controlled potentially, and this is a very common case. If in a family, the wallet and the money is controlled by the breadwinner and they happen to be an abusive person, now the people who are the victims of this circumstance, the vulnerable, they can no longer get some cash, because a lot of the thing with CBDC is like we're already a cashless society, and this is just pushing it more and more. And so you now have this thing that isn't like, you don't really have cash. So how would you even, if you needed to run away in the middle of the night, if you needed to get to safety, if you needed to, store some money and collect it over time and get your strength together to leave. This is, we watch the stuff in shows and movies and we think it's not us, but this happens in my backyard, and I live in, a first world country in a, prestigious neighborhood, but there are tons of people who will continually fall through the cracks. And so the ease of social programming is another thing that central bank digital currencies sort of promise to resolve, but I don't see it because we don't do a good job of it now. So how will we, what is it? What is this magical algorithm that's gonna suddenly make all the social programs amazing and well, and actually support the parts of the population that need help without compromising the vibrance and vitality of those parts of the economy, those people in the economy, those businesses that create value? There's a real balance here when you actually think about what wealth and money enable, what they enable, like within me, my family unit, my community, and then my nation. And so I think of things like, I really like to watch period pieces, and I was watching this show that, covered a time in Canadian cities when the suffragettes movement was very strong. And, this wasn't very long ago. It's like 100 years ago, where women fought for the right to be considered persons by law enough that they could vote. But the thing is, all of these protests, and some of them did get violent, people were thrown in prison, women were thrown in prison, and any person who supported the suffragettes movement. But at the time, it was kind of against the law, right? Like, you could not vote as a woman. That was the law. And so if something like that, happened now, would we be able to easily program and disallow people to use their bank accounts, use their money simply because they protested a government policy? And I think about this a lot in terms of, say, where I live, we don't do very well with treating the indigenous members of the population, the First Nations people here, as actual, citizens. Like, we talk about it a lot, we try things, but over the decades, like centuries now, we're still trying to figure it out. So when, someone is trying to build an oil pipeline through like their sacred land or through a marshland or things like that, in many ways that goes against government policy. So if you're at a protest, and this is actually very easy to do, it's very easy to freeze someone's bank account when it's controlled by the central bank. And these things are really problematic because, to me, rules and legislation are meant to serve, support, and definitely keep safe, and also enable growth, prosperity, vibrancy, and progress within the social, as well as the environmental, as well as the cultural, as well as the economic fabric of our world. It is not an either or. This is an all situation. How rich do you feel when you have all of the money in your bank account and you step out into you step out from your home and you take a nice deep breath and your lungs are filled with some type of, I don't know, smoke because the air around you is smog filled. Do you feel like that you can breathe? Do you feel rich, vibrant? Like, no, you don't. And we don't do very well, at least as of today. Maybe in your country, in your community, it's different. But in mine, we are still trying to figure out how to preserve water and build new homes. Like, we do not have this figured out. We absolutely do not. And this is not a bad on any person or a people, but in this very nascent early stage, we are now trying to use a tool that was built to celebrate and to encourage decentralization. And we're trying to force it into a centralized command and control. And like this is a question that sadly does not get asked too often. I imagine that as a finance minister, policy person, you are not a savvy programmer. Maybe you are, but the likelihood that that exists in every country is low. So who is actually programming this? Is it Google? Is it Facebook? Are they programming what is allowed and disallowed in a time of, where some people are really addicted to social media. Some people get censored. Some people want to have, some distance from their, technology and their media. Like, who is actually writing this program? What if it gets hacked? What if there's an internet outage? And now we have this weird cashless society where one governmental entity is controlling it. Again, these aren't essentially like evil, bad things, but these are questions that lead me to a large amount of unsettling, because we tend to create rules and policies in isolation. So something to help, with inflation, but then we ignore all this other stuff. We ignore what stitches together the fabric of society. And the inflation is a funny one, because when I was doing my research before this call, I found, I forget what country it was, but there was this line somewhere in their press release saying that their central bank digital currency will have an anti-inflation program. What does that mean? What? So what does that even mean? So inflation is the drop in the purchasing power of your currency, right? So $1 now buys less than it did a few years ago. And there exists apparently a program to, are you maintaining something? Are you resetting everything? We live in a debt-based economy. Are you wiping all of the debt of the world? Like, what are you doing? And I had that question. So I was like, okay, well, I'm not an expert programmer. I can, hack together code in a very bad way, but so definitely not an expert. And so when I actually pressed in, there was nothing there. Someone, likely like a politician or a media person, said a thing. And I really, really encourage that as you hear these conversations about a central bank digital currency and how it's going to solve all illicit activity and solve all social programs, and this thing you commonly hear is, for pensions or people who are like vulnerable populations, the central bank you will, instead of having a bank account with your local or international bank, it'll be directly with the central bank. So the central bank will directly able to tax you for every dollar in and out, depending on the income you make. The central bank will also be able to immediately, pay, send you funds, monthly. This is the whole universal basic income, or they will be able to, sort of allow your spending, and that will be very easy and it will be very fast. And that's all lovely. But, I think it works when you have full consent and trust with the folks who make the monetary and fiscal policy in your country. Now, I don't know these people. We vote for our presidents or our prime ministers or our MP. and maybe this is an invitation to really get to know these people. But what happens if the government changes and it's not a government you voted for? Then what happens? Do all the sub-programs that run your currency change? Like these are questions, and maybe there's wonderful answers to them. But my concern right now is not enough people are asking these questions. And not enough people are investigating how, when you have programmable currency, what are the implications to everything else? There's this whole war in Russia, the sanctions situation. Is it so unbelievable to imagine that along with trade sanctions, you might actually, if you were Russian or Ukrainian, you had an elderly aunt or family members who are really struggling in a country that has received a sanction. Would I be able to send currency? It would be so simple to disallow that. So the you and me equivalent sitting in a country that is unfortunate enough to be sanctioned in someone else's war that they didn't create, they just want to get food and do work. The average person who is vulnerable and getting hurt, to me, this is that crack is increasing in really big ways, and there isn't sufficient work and understanding here. Again, the whole fact that people are trying to use a tool that is really built for decentralization in the centralized way, you haven't understood what you're playing with. And so I encourage you to ask questions. When you see headlines that promise you that this will save the world and this will save you and suddenly you'll be rich and wealthy, okay, great. Why? How will this impact me? And if I want to leave generational wealth for my children, how will this impact my assets? And again, I don't mean this from a selfish perspective, but as citizens, we have rights and responsibilities. To me, this is a call for citizens to be responsible. Be responsible for yourself. Ask questions to your members of parliament if your country is a little bit more ahead than another country in the coming of central bank digital currencies. Ask questions to enable an expanded avenue of investigation. Understand what the implications are. Talk to people who are not of your social economic background. There's in Canada where I live, there's often, the eternal debate around gun regulations and licenses and things like that. And it's a big deal in the States as well. But we have a lot of Indigenous nations who live here, where hunting and fishing is a part of their culture that was ripped and stolen. And so, what does that mean? Will we allow, if you were to pass a law against the ownership of a gun, then no Native person can hunt? Is that it? Or will you have certain programs for certain people and then a different algorithm for a different person? But currency is a mode of exchange. It exchanges hands. The understanding of software development and code and how all of this is engineered and how it fits into the architecture of a land, of a culture, what the values of the country are, what the values of the individual are, the celebration of diversity, all this stuff is sort of ignored, and we're only looking at currency and money, maybe a little bit of inflation, and how we can, open a wallet for each person. It's so linear. It is so naive, this entire thought process. So I am deeply concerned to the avenue of all of this. And I encourage you to ask questions, do your research, do not get swayed by headlines that promise you the world. Actually have an understanding, learn, research, get together in community, find like-minded people, find opposing-minded people, because everyone has a different experience and every person deserves wealth, freedom, and money. No one deserves to live in poverty, and we have not yet in the world been able to create that. So what legislation, what is the solution? What is this technology solution that you're saying will magically dissolve poverty? Is that the claim? And what is there to substantiate the claim? I really encourage you to ask questions. Ask questions of the people in government, if you know, engage with your MPs, create community groups if that's your interest on trying to figure out what this is. If you know people who are part of the crypto space, the NFT space, find out what they are doing. Perhaps an amazing solution exists, but someone has to press in and ask. In every land, in every country, this is a responsibility and a call. It is the right of every sovereign citizen of every country. Celebrate your responsibility. We like to celebrate our rights and sort of defer our responsibilities to another person. No, this is our individual and collective wealth. The time is now. So please do some research, ask some questions, ask more questions, look at, like, press into what is behind the claims that we see around media. Ask someone who's a software developer, go look into code. Like, it's actually kind of fun and easy to take like a little boot camp class in programming. It's obviously not going to make you an expert, but at least you'll have a sense on how easy or not easy it is to allow, you know, a program to do something and not do something. And humans are complex, our societies are complex. So this is not a simple solution where one legislation or one technology solution fits everything. Technology isn't the solution. It's a part of a solution if you have a larger strategy that understands and acknowledges the humanness of us. Have a great day.